Hey guys, and welcome to episode 9 of Grow Everything. So sorry for the lack of videos over the past few years. A lot has been going on and gardening hasn't been my main focus for a while, but I wanted to get back into it and give you guys an update on my Back to Eden garden. As I've been doing other things, the soil food web in the wood chips has continued to develop, and some of the things I've planted over the past few years have done very well and some not so much. As early as the year 2017, the chips were beginning to hit their prime point in the breakdown process, and arthropods were beginning to spread to all parts of the garden, breaking down everything at a much faster pace. But looks can be deceiving. I decided to plant a small test garden and see what results I would get. From one area to the next, with as little as 2 feet between plants, the soil was either perfect for growing or still in a severe state of nitrogen tie-up, even with the consistency of soil looking similar between each spot. However, even some of the plants that were showing signs of nitrogen deficiency were surprisingly fruitful and had great stem structure. The pepper plants, though stunted, seemed to produce great fruit on almost every flower, and grew consistently even in a stunted state. I assume this has a lot to do with the abundance of phosphorus and potassium that is provided by the wood chips, as those two nutrients are responsible for the growth of good stems and fruit. Summer crops like yard long bean, okra, and eggplant were true tellers that things were starting to kick in. The okra grew so fast that we often would miss the opportunity to pick them in their prime. We harvested 70 eggplant from a single plant that reached 7 feet wide at full maturity. And the yard long beans were incredibly sweet. While I was away on vacation in 2017, my best sunflower reached 7 feet tall and bloomed nicely even in Florida's daily 99-degree heat. Other plants like strawberries and cucurbit family plants I decided to try growing out of season just as an experiment. The plants got shockingly large even under the Florida sun, but were too stressed from the heat to actually fruit. Though they didn't fruit, in the past I've had zero success getting any of these types of plants to grow. So even this is improvement over what I was seeing in my container garden back in 2016. Last year I planted basil and mint, and they grew incredibly fast. The plants were extremely dense and low maintenance. Eating a single basil leaf would almost take your breath away. With this planting, it also seemed that the nitrogen tie-up from 2017 was starting to go away. We have 2 Cavendish banana patches at the current moment that have produced fruit on every single pup, with yields ranging from 70 to 100 bananas per bunch. One of the bunches even continued to grow after being whipped by high wind during Hurricane Irma. In 2018, we had a volunteer papaya tree pop up in a shady spot near the edge of the garden. Papayas normally do awful in the shade. As soon as summer kicked off, it became instantly clear that this was one of the best papaya trees I've ever grown, and it required no maintenance at all. Over 100 large fruit produced in its lifetime. Usually papaya trees drop off the bottom leaves as they continue to grow. But that wasn't the case with this tree, as the nutrients were seemingly so abundant. The success I'm having with bananas and papaya is very telling to me, as both of these plants are considered heavy feeders by many, needing copious amounts of nutrients to produce fruit. Palm fronds make by far the best mulch for small plants and vegetables, because of their fine texture and abundant nitrogen. While oak and pine have proven to be great over time used under fruit trees, as they degrade slower and supply nutritious runoff during rainstorms. Some of the chips we had delivered back in 2014 were more like chunks than chips, and I was concerned that they may not break down at all. But after 5 years of fungal degradation, rain, and millipedes, they are now finally breaking down easily. I also want to stress the importance of sorting wood chips upon arrival. We made the mistake of spreading all the piles containing chips of different sizes and grades all across the garden space at random, leading to widely inconsistent breakdown in different areas. You can see in this clip as I'm digging to show you guys the broken down chips that I find some that actually haven't broken down at all and are from a completely different kind of tree. Weeding has been an absolute breeze. The broken down wood chips maintain a soft, spongy texture that allows weeds of every size to be pulled up with ease. Grass tends to still be a pretty big issue in the areas where the chips are becoming shallow, especially the traveling kind. It's very persistent and seems to grow in thicker each time you attempt to pull it because of the pruning effect that stimulates growth. However, I have recently started implementing an old method that slows down the progress of the grass, and in some cases fully eradicates it. I will elaborate on that in a video that is soon to come. 9 months ago I transplanted a soursop tree, and 4 months ago I transplanted an ice cream bean tree that were in my yard just in the sand. They're now in my Back to Eden garden. Over this summer, the soursop has really began to fill out, and is now nearly 7 feet tall. Originally, when the soursop was in my backyard, it was only 2 feet tall and had 3 leaves on it. Typically in Florida, you don't want to transplant trees in the winter because there's not enough rain for them to get established. However, that wasn't the case for my ice cream bean tree. Just some supplemental water and there's green shoots popping up all over it. One of the biggest differences between my garden and Paul Gauchi's is that it does require irrigation for small vegetables and annuals. Where I am in South Florida, the temperatures range from 75 to 105 degrees in our driest months, as opposed to Sequim, Washington, where the highs rarely break 70. What this means is that things can dry up very fast. The established trees, however, do not seem to mind at all, and have been thriving in the hottest and driest months because their roots are deep down below the wood chips. One of the best examples I have of this are my 2 poinciana trees, one outside the garden and one inside. The one outside the garden showed up in around October 2017 in my backyard, and was transplanted to my front yard in spring of 2018. Around the time of the transplant, another poinciana germinated and sprouted up in my garden, which I originally planned to remove. But what I was starting to see was too intriguing. The poinciana in the garden, that's months younger than the one outside, was much healthier and outgrowing the other by a long shot. The root system on the one in the garden appeared to be much stronger. Out of curiosity, I took measurements of each of the trunks. The poinciana tree outside the garden had a circumference of 14 inches. 14-inch circumference. The poinciana inside the garden had a circumference of 31 inches, just about double that of the tree outside. Over the winter, the tree in the garden has dropped minimal foliage and has continued to grow even with little to no rain. As you can see, there are developed growing tips on almost every branch. The tree in my yard went completely dormant. It has no growing tips on any of the branches, as you can see. Foliage from the tree outside the garden seems to have larger leaflets, but the color is light green and there seems to be diseased spots on the edges of the leaves. The tree inside the garden sports tightly knit smaller sets of leaves that are dark green in color and have no major signs of disease or damage. The leaflets from the tree in the garden seem to have a very responsive folding reflex after being removed from the tree. Very interesting. Now that I've spent 4 years or so analyzing the breakdown patterns, doing small test gardens, and making a few mistakes along the way, I feel that I can now confidently move forward with this project and start to fill out this whole space with some awesome plants and more wood chips. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and keep an eye out for further updates coming very soon. See you next time.